Well, hello everybody. I hope that you are still progressing in all your courses very well through this online segment. If you haven't figured it out by now, I love everything about this class. I love the topic of strategic management, but I have to tell you, I particularly love today's lesson on strategic leadership, and I particularly love the discussion that we're going to have next week on entrepreneurship. So buckle up your seatbelt, let's have some fun. I love to start this off in class by using the Poll Everywhere software to see how well people know the names of the CEOs of leading American companies. But I picked the alternate names in for specific reasons. So Amazon. I would be surprised if most of you don't know that Jeff Bezos is the CEO of Amazon. You certainly will by the time we get done with this class and the following class, because I think Amazon is one of the most interesting companies in the world right now. Although Jeff Bezos has kind of blown up his personal life, recently went through a divorce, and that always gives me concern about him as a person, I think that guy is probably going to be known as the greatest CEO of the first half of the 21st century. That's my opinion, and as we study this lesson, you'll see some reasons why I say that. But the other names on there are significant. Bill Gates, he founded Microsoft, obviously an incredibly valuable company, but remember, he was a very young man, and he was really a software guy. He was a developer. He knew what he was doing when he built that company, and yet he grew over time to become a great CEO. Marissa Mayer is no longer the CEO. She was the CEO for several years of Yahoo. She was like employee number 20 at Google and this brilliant, brilliant star of a leader. And then she took on a very troubled company called Yahoo and was not able to turn it around. And it'll be interesting to see whether she ever gets another CEO position again. I pick her out to highlight the danger of becoming a CEO, which is if your company doesn't do well, it may be a death sentence. And then you have Meg Whitman, who the strategic opening case was about. The thing that's interesting to me about her is when she became the CEO of eBay, which is arguably a technology company, she didn't really have any technology experience. She was a huge retail experience, though, and clearly eBay was in that space. How about Walmart? Well, if you fell for Bill Walton, you're thinking, well, certainly someone named Walton has to be the CEO since the Walton family is still the owner. There are lots of Bill Waltons in the world. I put that name up there because Bill Walton was a famous basketball player when I was a kid. And so, no, that's not the CEO of Walmart. You probably laugh when I put up there Hillary Rodham Clinton, but you kind of shouldn't. Did you know that many years ago, Hillary Rodham Clinton was on the board of directors of Walmart? That's when her husband, Bill Clinton, was the governor of Arkansas, and she was a rising lawyer in the firm. Brian Cornell is the CEO of not Walmart, but Target. And so by process of elimination, you see that a gentleman named Doug McMillon is the CEO of Walmart. I always get tickled at that name because, Walmart is the low price leader, and here you are having a guy with the name of McMillion as the CEO. Of course, he does make millions of dollars a year as the CEO of Walmart. He's interesting because he typifies an internal labor market. He has been a Walmart lifer. The only company he's ever worked for has been Walmart. So he rose through the ranks and became CEO at a very young age of 47. He's about 5 years into his tenure and seems to be doing extremely well. Lastly, General Motors. Well, that one is Mary Barra. She's significant because she was the first woman CEO, or is the first woman CEO of a major auto manufacturer. But she's also significant in a couple of other ranks. She got her big break, if you will, when GM was going through the bailout after the 2008 financial debacle, and she took an interesting sidestep. They promoted her to become the chief of human resources at GM, which typically was kind of a dead-end job. I mean, a very senior job, but that was your last job at GM. But instead, she impressed people, and they were looking for a real change at GM, and they thought that she could bring it. in that she's going to defy what we see at the end of this presentation, where it says you hire outsiders to bring change. She was brought in, or she was hired to be a change agent. Elon Musk, probably nobody fell for that name because everybody knows he's the head of Tesla. But what's interesting about that is a lot of people wrote off Tesla early on, saying, brilliant engineer is that Elon, brilliant businessman because he's launched a couple of very successful companies, eBay being, I think it was eBay being part of them. However, he didn't know anything about the car business. And if you're going to be a successful car manufacturer, you have to know the car manufacturing business. Well, what he's proven so far is that you can hire people with that manufacturing experience below the level of the CEO. Mark Fields was the CEO of Ford, again illustrating that it's sometimes hard to stay atop the bunking bronco of a company, and he was replaced by a guy named James Hackett. Fields had been a career car guy and was doing some good things at Ford, but just not fast enough. Hackett actually came off of the board of directors and is not a car guy, and Ford continues to struggle under his leadership. So today we're going to talk about strategic leadership. We're going to talk about the elements of it, and then we're going to talk about managing strategic teams, if you will. But I want to start off and motivate you towards this lesson in two ways. First of all, you could very honestly look at me and say, hey, bald guy, I'm not going to be a strategic leader for probably years and years. So why are we bothering with this discussion? Well, one, I want you to know what the elements of strategic leadership are, because as you rise through the ranks, you're going to be more able to learn from what you see when you understand the landscape. But secondly, you can actually become a strategic leader earlier than you think you can, because I don't define strategic leadership as just the CEO. To me, a person is a strategic leader if they have some latitude with the direction of their unit and some control over their resources and significant control over their hiring. If a person has that, they are a strategic leader. Part of the reason I'm so passionate about this topic is that the first time I rose to a strategic leader position in the Air Force, which I would say is when I was a fighter squadron commander, I really didn't understand what my job was. And I'll point that out when we get into the roles of the strategic leadership. I want to end this video, though, with this very important discussion of leader discretion, or how much do senior managers really matter anyway. That bottom box is really pivotal. That's about the person and the type of person that you are. And I hope you look at some of those characteristics and you begin to evaluate yourself. How do you fit on some of those parameters? What you're going to find in almost all cases is the characteristics we define as being great leaders have goods and bads to them. And so it's almost like you want to be right kind of in the middle of equality, because too little is not enough, but too much is also problematic. So for example, let's look at self-confidence. If you have too little self-confidence, you can never make a decision. You're always worried about making a mistake, and the only way you don't make a mistake is you don't do anything. That's bad. But by the same token, it's very easy to become overconfident. And when you become overconfident, you don't take the time to evaluate the options. You just believe your gut is always right, and you become impulsive, and you also ignore evidence that things aren't going to work out quite like you think they should. And so this is often called hubris. And this is something that plagues a lot of companies and leads to a lot of strategic mistakes. At the top, it talks about, can you handle strategic, or can you handle ambiguity? It's kind of similar to confidence, but if you are very uncomfortable in ambiguous situations, then again, you're paralyzed. But if you're too comfortable in ambiguous situations, it may be that you don't try to drive out the uncertainty, that you don't try to uncover what can be known. So the person matters a lot in this situation, and I want you to look at yourself as a person. Externally, things matter a lot too. What industry are you in? For example, it's very clear that you're going to need dynamic leadership in a technology company. How about if you're running a concrete company? Is that industry changing very much. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know the concrete industry, but my suspicion is it's not. And so there's only so many ways to do things in a concrete company. And you're not going to be redefining your mission and your vision necessarily in bold ways. Are you legally constrained so that there are some things that you're just not allowed to do? The other element is the company itself. And a lot of these variables that it has in the chart can interact in different ways. You can say, well, older companies are going to be more set in their ways. True, but sometimes older companies are running into performance problems, and because they see that they're having performance problems, they're more open to change. How about the board of directors? Does the board of directors bring you in as the CEO to bring change, or do they bring you in to give more of the same? How about your employees? Are they looking for change? Are they able to accept change? So all of these things matter a lot, and certainly culture is one of the ones that matters most. And we'll talk about that and the importance of that in the next video.